Hey there, hey there. It is time to go again. Here we are at the MBLEx review course. My name is Jody Scholes. I'm your instructor, and I am more than delighted to be with you today. For those of you who have been with me for classes in the past or watched anything on YouTube, you know I got your back on this. And it is one of my great privileges, something that makes me very happy when I get the text message, when I get the phone call, when I get the email that says, guess what? I just passed the test. Dude, it is like, I stand up, like people must think I'm certifiably crazy because it will be like, literally I'll stand up in the middle of wherever I am and like fist bump, like do happy dance, like do like the that's how happy I am for you when you get this thing done, because this test is tough, right? But this test has nothing to do with you as a licensed healthcare professional. Yeah, you got to know the terms, and we're going to cover some terms today. Today is guidelines for professional practice, ethics, boundaries, laws, regulations, vocabulary words, all that stuff that has nothing to do with the quality of your touch. But we got to know it. But that's what makes me so happy, is because we've all gone into this kind of no man's land of legal terms and ethical guidelines, and we've had to articulate what is so for the benefit of this test. And so today we're going to cover those words, because those words in English are a little confusing. When we were kids, we had homophones, right? We had words that were spelled differently that sounded the same. Things like the word there. When we ask, third graders to look up the word there, well, they spell it T-H-E-R-E, T-H-E-I-R, T-H-Y apostrophe R-E. These are words that can sound the same, but are different, have very different meanings. And so we're going to cover those words today. Yeah. Again, nothing to do with your quality of your touch. Go figure. Yeah, but we got to get it done. So we're going to cover some vocabulary words that are important to understand in the context of their meaning and when you're asked questions about them. And then we're going to dissect a few questions that have to do with these words, and also ethical situations. And so we'll come back to that when it comes time for the questions. All right, let's jump right in. We're not even going to talk about the computer adaptive test. We're not even going to talk about the MBLEx today as far as strategies, because you've had a lot of strategy. Let me go ahead and share my screen. There we go. And away we go. All right. So this is slideshow. Thank you. From the current slide. There we go. All right. I want to make sure you can see everything nice and clear. Okay. So here's where we start. We're going to start with healthcare terms, business terms, legal terms. We're going to cover quite an array of words today, and I'm going to put them in context so you understand why and how they might apply to your bodywork career. And for anyone who has had a job outside of the home, even in the home, this starts to, you can start to relate. And so let's just jump right in. So one of the very first terms that we're going to cover is a social media policy. And social media is like not part of massage, right? Well, actually it is, because depending on your social media presence, you can be presenting yourself as a professional or as unprofessional. And so knowing where you stand on social media. And look, I have lots of massage therapist friends that are like, boycott, not doing it, not doing anything with social media, hate it. Okay, fine, you might hate it. But if you are alive and breathing in 2022, we almost have to interact with social media. People will post events that we're interested in. So most people choose to just have a personal profile on Facebook. Some people go the extra step and set up a Facebook page for their business. But if you have any presence on social media at all, you get to clarify which is it that you have. Have you set up a page for your business, or do you have a personal profile? Now, depending on what level you want to do business, if you'd like to promote your massage therapy services, then that's when you're going to set up a separate Facebook page. But for most therapists, they have a personal profile and it's private. Here's why. Setting up a business page takes some effort. So you'll see each of these steps is a part of setting up a business page. So if you have not set up, if you haven't named your business or called it, Jody Skulls LLC, if you haven't identified your brand or your product, if you haven't picked being an artist or a public figure, or health and wellness, industry, most likely you have not set up a business page. Most likely you have a personal profile. Coming back to why is that significant? If you have a personal profile, you are personally responsible for the posts. I'm going to move us down over to here so you can see. This goob ahead is being silly. Imagine they're a massage therapist and this picture shows up in their feed because they've been tagged. Is that the type of picture that represents your professionalism? Nope. Nope. So pictures, and these can be something not quite maybe as dramatic as this picture of a young man in a tub full of beer cans, but it could be you in a bathing suit. It could be you at a march. My point in mentioning these different scenarios is simply to ask you to be intentional. Understand whatever you post on social media, your next best client may see it. Employers regularly Google their future employees. What are they finding online? Have you Googled yourself? This is a part of professionalism. And as you become a licensed healthcare professional, you get to take this into consideration. Now, you may say, screw it. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to be me, Jody. I'm just going to do me. Okay, you can do you, but just understand that your public image is being seen when you have a social media account. And making sure that we're not rocking the boat too much is actually in service to our clients. For years, my clients didn't know if I was conservative or liberal. They assumed, they thought they know me. They didn't know if I went to church or I didn't. They didn't know if I had pets or I didn't. Because you know what? It's not a part of my professional persona. Let's move along. If it lets me. Okay. Here are some words that you've heard before, and I want to be super clear about what they mean. Defamation, the communication of false information false information, written or spoken, that could damage a person's reputation. And so always take the high road. Defamation, you've heard it, when you see TV shows, defamation of character, right? Probably have heard that term before. Defamation. That just means false information, even information that might be true, but that you spin in a different way to harm a person's reputation. That can be considered defamation. Prejudice, an adverse preconceived judgment. We've heard a lot about prejudice over the last couple of years. We have no prejudice. As massage therapists, we actually hang some of these rights up at the door. And let me just be clear about that. Sometimes as a massage therapist, you don't get the same rights as a professional in your professional role. When you put your professional hat on, you don't get the same rights as the average human being to express your opinion. Why is that? Because we have promised, by entering into this profession, and I'm going to speak only to massage therapy, we have entered into this profession and we have agreed to create safe, non-judgmental space for our clients. Look, I don't care if you've got an atheist on your table. I don't care if you've got a Martian on your table. Our agreement with this profession, and let me be crystal clear, if you don't like this agreement, hit the road, Jack. Hit the road now. We have agreed to create safe, non-judgmental space for our clients. Look, 30 years ago, it wasn't as common for our gay brothers and sisters to be out of the closet. It wasn't as safe, right? And some people had an opinion about it. We've moved on. It's 2022. We understand that people come in all shapes and sizes. They come with all different preferences. Now, you may have been raised to have a particular point of view. But guess what? We actually get to leave that at the door. We get to leave all of our opinions at the treatment room door. And we show up for the person who's on our table. And we show up without prejudice. Coming back to our term, prejudice. Thank you for your patience. There we go. All right. You know me, being technology, we tend to do the little dance. All right. So prejudice is an adverse judgment or an opinion, and usually without sufficient knowledge. And prejudice is not based on any real or actual experience, any good reasons, any actual experience. So it is super important to recognize that if we have any, and to re-examine it. HIPAA, let's move it along. HIPAA, got a lot of terms to cover today. HIPAA, it's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So 2 A's, right? Not 2 P's. This is not hippopotamus. This is 2 A's. HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And it simply has to do with the disclosure of health information for clients. It has to do specifically with client privacy, and that means we refuse to discuss or acknowledge name, any symptoms. We don't even acknowledge we have them as a client. We can simply smile and nod. And be like, I'm actually not allowed to say anything about who is a client. And this, I can give you a dozen different scenarios. And if you watch Guidelines to a Professional Practice Part 2, you'll see all sorts of different scenarios that are presented. We run into somebody at church who's a client. We run into somebody at the grocery store who's a client. Client privacy means that we do not acknowledge they are a client. That is true client privacy. Here's a couple examples of violating HIPAA. California, a hospital employee posts a patient's chart to Facebook and makes fun of them for seeking STD treatments or for seeking birth control. In Rhode Island, these are actual cases. An ER doctor distraught over the death of a patient shares that she's heartbroken, but she's switching the patient's gender and cause of death to protect the patient's identity. In Wisconsin, an ultrasound tech posts that she's thrilled that one of her patients is having triplets. No, absolutely not. These are all violations of HIPAA. And it's punishable by up to a $50,000 fine. Not only the individual who's posting, but their employer as well. This is especially true when there are celebrities involved. No, man, just skip it. It's all about the ego anyhow. So just skip it. All right, more legal terms. I know you love them. Protocol. What is a protocol? It's a detailed plan of therapeutic treatment. It's the protocol, the procedure that you're going to use. So in a question, in a MBLEx question, you might hear, during the therapeutic consultation, did you know that you have therapeutic consultations? You do. This is actually a term mostly used when working with minors. It refers to the parents being involved. But that therapeutic consultation can stretch into the intake with a client. Typically, it's used to a term used when working with minors that the parents are involved in the decision making. With any minor, and we'll see questions about this later, but with any minor, the parent must be present for the first session. And then we need to use good judgment as to whether or not that parent is involved in the future in their sessions. And I would say, as a good rule of thumb, no cross-gender sessions for minors. So women work with female minors, males work with male minors. It just avoids a lot of conflict. So just a good rule of thumb. It's not a legal requirement. It's a recommendation. But the therapeutic consultation involves the parent and the minor. And the minor has a voice, but the parent has the final say. And again, the parent needs to be involved in the session for a minimum of the first session. And that is a legal requirement. So let's pause here at professional. Professional, we have two words, professional and occupation, coming up next. Profession and professional. Which is a person? Profession or professional? And even as with English as a first language, this can be tricky. The professional is a person. So the professional is the person. A profession is their job or occupation. The work they do for money. That is their profession or their occupation. A productive or creative activity that serves as a regular source of income. An occupation is their job. The profession is the job, is the category. What profession are they in? So if you have an occupation outside of doing massage therapy right now, what is that profession? So do you see the difference? The occupation is the work, the activity. I have an occupation, I have a job, I do this kind of work. And so many times it's one and the same as what the profession is. But let's say that your occupation involves many roles. Say you are an event planner. Well, your occupation could be on any given day running an event, getting sponsors, promoting the event. So there's a lot of activities that are under that occupation. And let's just be clear. Professional, the person. The profession, the category. What profession are you in? Which can be synonymous with occupation. So we need to be careful when we're looking at these questions. Let's continue on, and we'll see them in again. Got a few more weird words. Intellectual property, may have heard this. Intellectual property is important to us because it defines what we can use. So I can't cut and paste from someone else's website and put it on my own without giving them credit. It's their intellectual property. So we think of this sometimes as inventions or in formulas or books or art. Yes, those are examples of intellectual property. Typically, they are trademarked or copyrighted or patented. Anything that is trademarked, copyrighted, or patented is intellectual property that belongs to someone else, and we have to have permission to use it. There is a setting on your computer called the Creative Commons, and that means some people who have produced works of art and taken pictures or things like that. The Creative Commons license means they've given permission to anyone to use it. And typically you'll see these Creative Commons licenses on Wikipedia. So if you go to any Wikipedia site, the images that are there are considered Creative Commons licensed, meaning anyone can use them. But we need to distinguish because intellectual property is a real thing. Fair Use Act. All right. Limited use of copyright material. That's Fair Use Act is just the limited use of copyrighted material, mostly for education or research. So this would not be for professional gain. This would be maybe you're teaching a class. Maybe you're doing some research. Well, you can use that image to demonstrate your point. It just can't be for profit. Fiduciary. You may have heard of this if you've ever sat on a board. And you've served on a board, the fiduciary responsibility of the board is to carry out the bylaws. And fiduciary typically has to do with money. So in regard to a relationship between the trustee and the beneficiary, or between an organization and their finances. The fiduciary responsibility of the board is to use the grant money for what it was stated. How does this apply to massage therapy? Well, we have a fiduciary responsibility to charge the same rates to all of our clients with only certain distinctions. So we can't charge more for 60 minutes to one client than we do to another client. It's a fiduciary responsibility, meaning fair around money. Insider trading, again, we're kind of skipping all over the place here, but insider trading is hearing something from an inside source. Insider trading, inside source. Oh, my company is about to go public, go buy some stock. Oh, here's a hot tip. We're merging with another company. Stock is about to split and double, go buy some. That's actually considered inside trading. If you get that information from an inside source, not from a public source, that is actually insider trading. That information is not available to the public. Let's go over a couple of business entities. A franchise. So a franchise is a license granted by a larger company, usually with some support, to carry out specific responsibilities. What are franchises you know? There are some massage franchises that have become popular. What are some franchises you know? So now would be the time you can use that little chat button. Let's see if I can get it to come up. Move this down here. Oh, there we go. Yes, Massage Envy is a franchise. It's a massage franchise. What else is a franchise? McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Applebee's. Also, there's all sorts of examples of franchises. Massage Luxe is another massage franchise. Hand and Stone is a franchise. Yeah, exactly. So this is, and the person who runs that franchise actually may not be a massage therapist. They may just really like the idea of getting into the health and wellness business, but they've been granted a license to carry out a very specific service or to provide, food or a different service. That's a franchise. And the person who owns the franchise is called the franchisee. Another business entity is a sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is one person. It's the simplest form. If you have never declared any type of business entity, you are a sole proprietor. That's where everybody starts. Now, technically, this legal entity does not protect you from it. It is simply you are an individual doing business, and it's a fancy way to say you're an individual doing business. You're a sole proprietor. A partnership, of course, is a legal agreement between at least two people. And what's interesting about the partnership is simply the tax form. The tax form, each partner must file what's called a K-1. So there's a difference between sole proprietor and partnership as far as taxes are concerned. And although we are not tax professionals, there are some basics we do need to know about the tax world. A few more terms for you. And then soon we'll be getting into dissecting some questions. A big long word, non-maleficence. Non-maleficence. Simply do no harm. That means no mal, non-mal. Don't mal, don't hurt. So non-maleficence, the principle of first do no harm. We come back to payer discrimination, and that is a fiduciary duty. So that would be an example of payer discrimination would be charging insurance companies a higher rate than clients who do not use insurance. So if a client is going to be using their insurance and in your business, you've decided that you will bill insurance, there's a whole medical billing, continuing ed, medical massage therapist education out there. If you choose to go in that direction, you can bill insurance, but you cannot charge the insurance more. So if you know, oh, I'm only going to get 50% back from this insurance company, you cannot charge them double. That is called payer discrimination, and you will get in trouble. Depends on your state and your county, what kind of trouble, but it is something you've got to be consistent. All right, let's make the distinction between harassment and sexual harassment. Harassment is unwanted, disturbing actions. Threats, pressure, intimidation, demands, harassment. Somebody might be harassing you by intimidating you, making demands, putting pressure on you. But sexual harassment involves pressure and solicitation for a sexual act. So physical advances, conduct that is sexual in nature. So make the distinction. There's sexual harassment, which might be the best answer to your question. But there is simple harassment. Doesn't make it any less harassing, but it is not necessarily sexual in its nature. All right. So at this point, I'd like to remind you that it might be good to go ahead and reread or familiarize yourself with the AMTA's Code of Ethics and the ABMP Code of Ethics. We also have the NCB-TMB. NCB-TMB. Any guesses as to what that stands for? Yeah, it's a board certification. It's called the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork. And they have a lovely standard of practice that does show up at times on your exam. Like, for example, legal standard 2 out of the 6 standards of practice. Standard 2 talks about the legal and ethical requirements. You got to comply with all legal requirements for your jurisdiction. Not only do you have to comply, but you have to figure out what they are. When I first started practicing massage therapy in a little town called Vienna, Virginia, I had the state requirement, Fairfax County, my county requirement, and my town requirement. I had 3 different applications I had to fill out. Normally, I wouldn't have known that, but I had to do a little digging. Standard 2 also of the legal and ethical requirements say we refrain from conduct that could result in illegal, unethical, or discriminatory acts. So it's our requirement, our ethical requirement to refrain from behavior to the best of our ability that's illegal, unethical, or discriminatory. These are what we're agreeing to by becoming massage therapists. All right, hang in there with me, guys. Home stretch, and then we're going to get to dissecting some questions. But I want to just cover a few more words with you. We're going to take a little bit of a brain break to remind you to get your CPR and first aid up to date. And I wanted to familiarize you with a very important acronym, and that's FAST. F-A-S-T. And the FAST is the acronym for the sign of a stroke. And I love that we have the word fast, because the faster you act, the higher the percentage of recovery. The faster you act, the less damage this stroke will do. If someone you know, someone you love, someone you work with says, you know, man, I just woke up feeling weird today. I mean, this happened to a girlfriend of mine. Her husband took a shower and he came out and goes, I just don't feel right. One of the first things she said, smile, look at me, smile. If there's any distortion in their smile, it is the first sign of a stroke. So drooping, weakness on one side, face, F in FAST stands for face. Then we've got the arm, right? So we think of the arm as the sign of a heart attack. This can just be numbness, weakness in either arm, not just the left arm. Ask your friend, lift both your arms overhead. Can they do it? So they can smile just fine, but they can't raise one arm overhead. 911. The only correct answer to this, by the way, is if you suspect someone having a stroke, there is no other course of action. You do not drive them to the hospital. You do not call a friend. You dial 911. That is the only correct answer here, because the faster you act, the higher the likelihood is that your friend will be fine, your friend or loved one. Maybe they have the classic speech slurring going on. That's one that's pretty common that you may have heard about before, which is this sign of a stroke. They're slurring their words. Ask them to say, hey, just say, hey, today is Tuesday. Can they get that out? And so finally, T, the FAST, the T in FAST is time sensitive. Really, as soon as possible. As soon as you see they have any difficulty with any of these tasks, smiling, raising their arms overhead, or speaking, you've got to get them to medical attention. And the fastest way to do that is call 911. And don't listen to them because they're going to tell you they're fine. So don't listen to them. All right. But this is a reminder that you do need to have your CPR and first aid up to date when you go to take your test to fully meet the requirements of being a licensed healthcare professional. So look at that over the next 30 to 60 days if you haven't done it in the last 6 months. Things change all the time too, by the way. So it's really good actually to take CPR and first aid regularly. All right, let's just do a brief recap. Professionalism. Professionalism is a part of our standard of practice. So we've talked about being a professional, which is the person. We talked about the profession, which is massage therapy. These are ways, how are we showing professionalism? Well, we conduct any communication with other professionals, friendly and professional. We show respect for tradition and practices. We wear clothing that's clean, modest, and if that's part of your part of the regulations where you work, maybe it has an imprinted logo. These are all ways we demonstrate professionalism. And as a bonus, we're going to cover 3 screens of common psychological terms. And if you are not snoozing by now, soon you will be. But these are kind of fun because you've heard of them before, but it's always nice to kind of really get the exact definition of, say, transference. Remember transference and countertransference? Yeah, these can be tough. So transference has to do with a client transferring emotions to the therapist. Now, this also is very much like the teacher-student relationship. There's a power differential between the client and the therapist. And I don't care if you guys, like if there's dual relationships, which we'll talk about in a minute too, but say you're working on your mom, say you're working on a friend, say it does not matter. Say you're working on a boyfriend or girlfriend. There is a power differential that exists much like the teacher-student because you are the therapist and they are laying down on a massage table and taking off some of their clothes. As the massage therapist, you have the upper hand. We need to recognize that and understand that there could be some transference going on. That client, no matter how well they know you, might be transferring feelings to you, transferring, mistaking you for another power differential relationship. Transference is from the client to the therapist, by comparison to countertransference. And that's when the therapist transfers feelings to the client. And again, our roles and boundaries are so important here. This is another example of where, as a licensed massage therapist, you don't get to be friends with your clients. I'm sorry. You don't get to be friends with your clients. You get to choose. You can either have them as a client or have them as a friend. especially if this is something that if you've never met them before, you must make those distinctions. Countertransference is a real thing. Sometimes we meet someone like, oh my gosh, they're so cool, I want to make them my friend. And then the boundaries get murky. That client calls and, ooh, even though it's after hours, I'm going to take this call. Ooh, I'm working with this cancer patient, because, I have this history with cancer or abuse victims or sports teams or mental health. Boundaries, kids, boundaries, ladies and gentlemen. Another example, countertransference, thinking you need to work longer on the client than the 60 or 90 minutes that they have asked for. Oh my gosh, I'm so close. This is so close to releasing. I'm just going to work a few extra minutes. Wrong. Wrong. That is you playing the hero. That is counter-transferring. We must have faith in our process. We must have faith in the body's ability to heal itself. We facilitate a space for the body to heal. It is not because of your magic hands that someone heals. It is because the body has an innate ability to heal. You facilitate the space. Yeah, you stimulate that healing response, but the body heals. The body comes back to homeostasis. The body wants to be well. We're facilitating that space, and we need to do so with good boundaries and understanding our role. So countertransference is from the therapist to the client. I believe we are almost done here, kids. All right, we'll do just a couple more. Ones you've heard about, post-traumatic stress syndrome. This is actually post-traumatic stress syndrome. We've got complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, you can look at these after we get done here. These are both mental health conditions. Post-traumatic stress is a condition that results from an event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. And post-traumatic stress can include flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety, not feeling safe. A complex post-traumatic stress is the duration, so prolonged repeated trauma. So the complex prolonged repeated trauma. And that sometimes is in the context of dependence, captivity, entrapment, or feeling out of control. So post-traumatic stress, complex post-traumatic stress. One's called syndrome, one's called disorder. Others sometimes it's called post-traumatic stress injuries. And the trend right now is to go towards injuries because the client can heal from an injury versus have a disorder. So just watch that terminology. Oh, here's a couple good ones. Hyperarousal, a state of constant alertness to danger. And this is as a direct result of being a survivor of trauma. They are hyper aroused because they've been through something. So this describes a state, and it's also considered a constant condition of fight or flight. Confrontation is the act of facing and dealing with a problematic situation, and it is not always negative. Confrontation can be positive. It's simply the act of facing and dealing with a problematic situation. In fact, with most confrontation, I like to imagine really positive outcomes. Intrusion, as you may understand it from its natural meaning, information that's related to the theme of a certain memory, but wasn't actually part of the original episode. So an intrusion of a memory, that means someone's laying over information that was actually not part of the original episode. That's an intrusion. So a thought has come in and inserted itself, intruded into the original episode. It's a psychological term. And finally, boundary, a limit that's adhered to in order to separate and protect integrity for all parties. Denial, a defense mechanism that involves an active refusal to recognize or acknowledge the full implications of an unpleasant reality. Some people are in denial about the effects of a trauma on them. That's fine. We can witness it and not try and fix it. Finally, assertive language, and that is simply clear communication, minimal emotional content. Neutral, not excited tone to your voice. This is clear communication, assertive language, stating the facts. And sometimes we need to use assertive language in a situation that might be emotionally charged. But it's our responsibility, again, in facilitating safe, non-judgmental space, to simply use clear communication with assertive language to communicate the question or the information. All right, crazy. Lots of psychological terms, lots of ethics, laws and regulations, boundaries, roles, and just all sorts of things that we've covered here today. And I know it almost feels like we're bouncing all over the solar system, but these are words that it's really helpful to know, really helpful to revisit as you prepare for the MBLEx, because you might see them. About 30%, 27% of your MBLEx is on laws, rules, regulations, ethics, and guidelines to a professional practice. I skipped over sanitary hand washing because I think for the last 2 years, all of us have been bombarded by our sanitary hand washing, right? It is. So these are, but that's part of a guideline to a professional practice. I don't know if you remember learning that in school, but we learned how to do sanitary hand washing. I know, crazy. And here we are. It's why we stay healthy. It's why we've stayed healthy in general. Let's dissect a few questions and we'll call it a day. All right. Oops, I gotta share my screen. Test questions A, where are you? All right. We are going to use our test taking strategies to dissect the question. All right. So, questions for ethical standards. All right. When doing a massage for a client at home, at your home, to maintain the standard of practice of professionalism, take into consideration. What are we going to take into consideration? Let's see if I can make this a little bigger for you. All right, here you go. All right. When doing a massage at your home, to maintain the standard of practice, which the standards of practice of professionalism. So let's take a look at the question. The setting is your home. The standard of practice of professionalism. So we are speaking specifically to professionalism here. A, consider distractions, noise, people that may compromise a relaxing atmosphere. B, how much to charge the client based on how well you know them. C, the safety of the stairs and railing. D, the availability of proper equipment, massage table, clean linens, etc. All right, so this is completely a different mindset, right? Where doing a massage at home, at our home. And the question is asking us, okay, the standard of practice of professionalism. So we are addressing something that has to do with professionalism. All right. Can we get rid of two? Can we get rid of two answers? Let's see. Distractions, how much to charge, the safety of the stairs and railing, availability of proper equipment. Let's see what we got. Drop B and C, drop D. Jayla is saying D is the answer. Yanni is saying D is the answer. You know, I agree. I agree that this, just the safety of the stairs and railing, that doesn't have to do with professionalism. It does, but it's like on the fringes, right? Hopefully that's a little bit of a different issue. That's more safety, right? If we look at that. All right. So we know that C is not the best answer. So let's get rid of that one. All right. So I've had some feedback that D is the answer. Drop B and C. All right. Let's take a look. Let's see what we got here, guys. All right. Availability of proper equipment, the massage table, clean linens. Okay. That's certainly a part of professionalism. How much to charge the client based on how well you know them. Distractions, noise, people that may compromise a relaxing atmosphere. Okay, so let's take a look at the question again. We want to take into consideration. That's an important part. So we're going to take into consideration. So all of these are going to be yes, except one of them is no. So yeah, we're going to take into consideration the safety of the railing, sure. Yeah, but it's not going to be our primary concern. Yeah, we're going to take into consideration the proper equipment. Yeah, for sure. We're going to take into consideration distractions that may compromise the relaxing atmosphere. Now, look at letter B. How much to charge the client based on how well you know them? Is that professional? Do we take that into consideration? How well I know them is based on what I charge them? Oh, I see some. Yeah, exactly. Right. So you see, the question is a little tricky here, right? When doing a massage for a client at your home, to maintain the standards of practice of professionalism, take these things into consideration. Distractions, safety, yes, proper equipment, but I'm thinking it's this. Let's scroll down and see. We don't charge them based on how well we know them. Let's scooch down. B, boom, exactly. We charge the same for every client. Charges vary 30, 60, 90 minutes, but not by how well we know the client. Freaking tricky, eh? Look at that. All right, let's do another one. When doing a massage at a client's home, to maintain roles and boundaries, do not. All right, so we're talking about roles and boundaries, and they're saying do not. All right. A, have dinner and drinks with the client if they invite you. B, begin and end the session on time. C, have clear directions to the home prior to the appointment. D, confirm the appointment 24 hours in advance. All right, you guys, talk to me. Chet's nailing it. I know. Okay, guys, what you got? To maintain roles and boundaries. Oh, got more answers coming in. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yanni, you got it. Chet got it. Johnson, yes, you got it. Yes. Oh, one more new message. Hold on. Let's see. Yes, Jayla. Yes, you guys got it. Very good. Let's make sure we got it right. A is our answer. The overwhelming response was A. Do not have dinner and drinks with a client if they invite you. Bang. Having dinner and drinks with a client is a social activity and could jeopardize the client-therapist relationship. Very true. All right, last one. Weird one. To maintain your safety when working at a hotel, always A, lock the hotel room door. B, tell a friend or spouse where you will be and when. C, check in and out of the front desk or with the concierge. D, be clear with the client about taking payment before or after the session. So to maintain your safety when working at a hotel, always. Okay, which one of these things do you not always do? A, lock the hotel room door. B, tell a friend or spouse where you'll be and when. Check in and out with the front desk or the concierge. D, be clear with the client about taking payment before or after the session. Which one of these does not fit? What don't you want to do? Do you want to tell a friend? Yes. Do you want to check in and out with the front desk? I do. Do you want to be clear with the client about taking payment? Oh, yeah. Do you want to lock the hotel room door? What is the purpose there? All right, I've got some answers coming in. Oh, yeah. Look at you guys. Boom, boom, boom. You got it. That is right. Let's scooch down here and see. We believe A, do not lock the hotel room door. Exactly. Even in the times where I've been working with a sports team and we're on the road, I put that little bracket thing in front of the door. I just leave the door cracked. Do not lock that implies something that you don't want people to see is going on. Plus, you can't get out. Yeah, so good job. Good job. Yay. We're done. Woo! That went into a part of your brain, a part of your gray matter that you have not used in a little while. So good job. Good job, each of you. Very, very pleased. So that concludes our session for today. I'm going to say a quick goodbye for the recording, and then I'm going to hang out for about 5-10 minutes and see if there's any questions. So my name again is Jody Scholes. I've been your instructor today through laws and regulations and ethics and boundaries and roles in pursuing guidelines to a professional practice for your studying to prepare for the MBLEx exam. We meet on Tuesdays at noon. We meet live here Tuesdays at noon. And then if you are a part of our posse, we send you the recording so you can review it again at your leisure. You can always find us on YouTube as well. There's some nice stuff on YouTube, but gonna sign off for now. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening.